Hello, SMFers. I thought I would do a video of a ribbon pour. I've been doing a few of these lately, trying to get some different effects. I think it's a technique that would have just myriad variations on it and different looks that you can get. So I think it's pretty useful. I've made some bars. I've been using more of a vertical technique recently. I've used this many times with different patterns and you'll get different looks, of course. This one is more of a vertical with a little bit of squiggle in the middle just for some interest. But the point of the pour is to get your colors lined up in the bowl and then have them come down the spout, staying in order essentially in the colors in which they're coming down the spout, and then you lay them out so you can get some very fine striping. You can get some you have a lot of control over where the soap will go and what sort of patterns you want in there. So I just thought I would do one. I'm going to do a simple red and white one, and that way you can kind of see how it works. For a ribbon pour, I've also used it for my burl pour. You have to have something that's got a spout. That's where it works the best. I like this particular container that you can find on a number of different sites, but it's got this narrow spout that is very good at directing the colors together. It makes a relatively narrow band when you pour it, but it's very nice to pour. I'm going to be using these for my molds today, but it's very nice for being able to get it right down in there so that you're pouring close to the surface and you don't have a lot of spreading from the soap pouring into the bottom of the container without too much control. You could use something like this with a more narrow spout, but as you can imagine, pouring from this into the bottom, you're going to have quite a bit of spread. Or if you're using a standard mold, oops, sorry about the little thing down there. If you're pouring this way, there's going to be a lot of drop for your soap. And then as you layer it, there'll be more pressure from the soap pouring on top and you'll get some differences in your pattern. That could be great. That could be just what you want, but it's just worth knowing that that will happen. So, got my oils. I'm just making a 1 pound batch. I'm using a fragrance that's an accelerator. I'm using Summer Fling from Brambleberry, and it's got a little bit of champagne in it, but Summer Fling is relatively fast. So the oils are just about room temperature and lye is cool. So I will probably turn off and come back once I have everything kind of settled, because I think watching soap being stirred is fairly boring. All right, I've got my red and my white. They are barely, that's gonna give too many shadows. They are just at light trace. I'm just being able to see the soap on top, leave a little bit of an indent. I think I probably made a little bit more red than I intended. The red is going to be much more prominent in the soap than the white, so I think I got my proportions off, but it doesn't matter now. So you do definitely want this at trace, at a light trace. This is not one that you want at that kind of oily thinness, because when you pour into this and as you pour out, these colors need to stay distinct. You'll have a lot of melding of colors if it's too light. So I like to take it to a light trace first. And then in line with the spout, I pour lines. So I always pour on the side so that the soap will come out this way. It's not perfect, but it'll more or less come out this direction. Obviously there's a little bit of a curve from the pouring lines, but... And you can of course vary your amounts to get different lines. As it thickens, the soap, can you see that? Yeah. The soap that you're pouring will start to sit on top of the other stuff. Not bad or good, just the way it is. The other thing that you could do is, well, I think you'd get very thin lines, but I'm not sure if that would come out super well from the spout. If you poured everything very thin and then waited for it to thicken up in the pouring container. That would be one thing that you could do if you wanted a lot of very fine lines, because it will pour more side by side than this is going to start going on top, which is good. That's fine with me. At the end, you'll usually have a run of the first color that you put in. Actually, don't want that to dip down too much. So a lot of times at the very end, you'll have a lot of your first color. So I think I poured a fair amount, but FYI. And you can pour from the other side if you want to have a little bit more variety. How you pour into the container will have some effect on how it's coming out though, so that's worth experimenting with in terms of which color comes out first, for instance. I've done this before, layering my colors in the bowl from light to dark or dark to light, and then when you pour, you will actually pour the colors in pretty fair sequence, so you can get kind of a nice sunset look or gradient look doing this as well. It's not quite the same as if you're doing layers one on the other, because there'll be a little bit more mixing, almost like, I guess kind of like one of the Clyde slides where there's some feathering and some of the colors mix. You'll get that in this kind of thing instead of a straight up gradient, but I don't think that's bad. Different looks are good. So it's got a bit of white. I'll just pour a little bit over here just for the heck of it. So as you can see, it kind of lined up with the spout, not too badly. I do not mix it. I will not mix it from here. I want those colors and lines. So this is a 1 pound batch. Make sure that I'm in this screen. Gotta make sure my stuff is out of the way so that this can spin. I actually want to do a round one. This is a 16 or 17 ounce batch, so you can see how far it fills the thing up. And then you start getting, this will not dip down into the thing. I'm going to have to pour, and it's going to be from a distance. Oh, let me try over this way. And then you watch as you go. This is actually feathering a bit more than I want. I don't know if you can see. Hang on. Let me zoom in a bit. There we go. It's as zoomed in as I can get. I'm going to try not to stick my head in the way, which will be an issue. Yep. So I don't know if you can see, it depends on how you're pouring. I haven't poured a round one before, so this is a bit of an experiment. I don't know if you can see how the red's coming out in very skinny little lines. There'll be more red coming as I go along, just because of the nature of how it went into the container. So you can try to pour straight lines in a straight mold. You can do curly lines. You can zigzag it all over the place. Sometimes it's kind of fun when I've zigzagged it all over the place. You get some really funky patterns in the cut, which is fun. And if you can see, it's pouring a little bit. I actually need to go faster with this pour, I think. I want to try to get some straight lines as well and see how that comes out when I cut. I'm sure I like the straight lines. I think I'm gonna, and then you can see you can start squiggling it and get some kind of rosetti looks. You can let it curl up on itself, which will give you a little bit of a burl look, which is nice if you're looking for soap rocks. And you get that little kind of curly granite look. That's really nice. And as you can see, as you get to the top, it's much easier to actually place the soap where you want it. And I've got another, where's my other mold? And this one's going to be kind of weird. I'm using, I might not turn this one. Can you still see? Yeah. So this one I'm just going to try to place some in the mold. Got that little cap section to fill up. Ooh, starting to get thick. There's your accelerating FO. I want to get the thing down in there. I'm going to let this one curl up a little bit. I didn't like that straight look as much. And this is starting to look a little applesaucey. I don't know if you can see. I think you can. Just because of the accelerating FO. It's starting to look a little applesaucy, so we'll see what we get when we cut. I think it will be okay. Obviously with this, if you're pouring out of a spout, you do not want a batter that's too thick, because it's got to come out your spout in a line. This is going to be one of those kind of random pattern ones, which I personally like. But if it's too thick, obviously it's not going to come out. And when it gets applesaucy like this, makes you all nervous that it's going to separate at some point. But we shall see. The thick is actually kind of interesting because it stays together so well in the pattern stripes. I have to get my spatula out for this. There we go. And obviously what you see 3D is not what you're going to get in the soap. Because the 3D pattern, you're just going to be cutting on a 2D plane. So what can look cool in 2D or 3D is not going to be necessarily what you see when you cut, which I found out the hard way. I've got a lot of red here. I'm just going to plop it all in because I hate to waste. We'll see if we can get it to stay. It's like doing ice cream. Come on. There we go. Alright, so we're going to see some different things in here. I don't like to waste anything, so I'm going to just pour a little bit in a cup and then we can see some different patterns come out. Well, that's going to be kind of a smoky mix of pinks and red, which again, not bad, just different. So we will see what we got. I think you can see that. Oops, banging into everything. This is going to stay together, I can tell. It just started getting applesaucy, but I think we'll see how smooth it looks when I cut. It may actually come out okay. And I don't know if you can see. I think I'll take my camera down. There we go. And now you can see a little bit of how it stays together and how it doesn't. So you can see the lines of red and the lines of white. That little part is not the best example. And this was at the end of the container, so it always seems like there's a little bit more blurring of the colors to me when I get to the end. The first part seems to come out the best. Is that going to stay up? And then I'm going to show you my other one. This one I think I liked better as it was pouring. And as you can see, that stayed in nice little ribbons. The red stayed in the red, white stayed in the white for the most part. Let's see if I can zoom in. It's still gonna, there we go. So you can see how fine some of those red lines are. And those will stay separate. So when I cut, I will show those bars and you can experiment yourself.